Hello, everybody. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. Give us just a couple minutes here to get some more people in and things set up. Thanks. We'll get going in just a few. Wanted to get it started so people could start getting on. Gonna talk about healthy eating tonight. We'll get going here in just a minute. Couple minutes. Hey, Pam. We'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes. Glad to have you. Be talking about healthy eating tonight. So it should be very informative. Coming up soon. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Getting set up. Hey, Scott, how are you, sir? Good to hear from you. Glad you're joining us. We'll be going here in just a couple minutes, or actually less than a minute now. Suzanne, good to have you. Hey, Dr. Vickers, how are you doing, sir? Good to have you. So we got a couple things going here, y'all. I've got the Facebook obviously live going, and we have our members who are members of our program are on our private Zoom. So we're going to do this one both ways to help more people understand what our OptiU membership is about. So that's great. Hey, Betsy. Thank you for joining us. Okay, y'all. It's 6 o'clock now, so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the topic that I've been sending all the members videos on, which is healthy eating. And the idea behind this OptiU RX membership is that we're going to give people practical advice and easy ways to help improve their health and their life on a weekly basis. And then once a month, we're going to do a live session where questions will be answered on the topic that we've discussed that month, or on something different if people have other things they want to talk about. So thank you all for being here. I think that it's important as people are still coming on that we kind of get started with a quick overview of why I'm doing this and what OptiU is all about and how it all came about. So, hey, Emily, good to hear from you. I hope you and Hunter and the kids are doing well. So real quick, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Billy Wease, the 21st century pharmacist and the health and wellness expert. And this came about as I went to pharmacy school at UNC Chapel Hill, my last semester of pharmacy school. I got a phone call. It's not an unusual phone call at all. It was from my grandmother, and I called her Granny. And yes, Granny, I'm eating well. Yes, Granny, I'm sleeping well. Yes, Granny, classes are going well. The typical things that she would ask me week after week. And then it was, oh my goodness, you have cancer? So I thought, as a pharmacist, or getting ready to graduate in just a few weeks, and from pharmacy school, that I could be of some help to Granny. So I decided to drive the 3 hours and take her to the oncology appointment. The oncologist said, you have this kind of cancer, you need this chemo and this radiation, you need to start now. And I asked what I thought was a really important question, an intelligent and important question, and that was, how can we help Granny have a better outcome? And I'll never forget, he looked me right in the eye and he said, absolutely nothing. There's nothing else you can do. And it really got me to thinking that as somebody getting ready to graduate from the #1 pharmacy school in America, that I really didn't know anything about health and wellness. I mean, I couldn't even help my own Granny, so how was I going to help other people? So that led me to go back to school, to the University of South Florida School of Medicine, and obtain an advanced fellowship in metabolic and nutritional medicine. Now, here's the reason I want to tell you that. It's so that you understand that, number one, I'm motivated to help people get well because it all started with Granny's story. And number two, you have to understand that the typical pharmacist, the typical physician, the typical physician assistant, the typical nurse practitioner, the typical dietitian, nutritionist, they don't really get the training that I went through. And they don't really learn about wellness. They learn more about how to manage sickness. And so I think it's important that we start out that first month of the year in talking about how do we have better results for people, because we spend the most in America on healthcare. It's about $4 trillion a year on what we call healthcare, but yet we get the worst results. We spend more, that $4 trillion is more than the next 10 countries' healthcare spending combined. We take the majority of the world's prescription drugs. We run the most unnecessary tests. We do a lot of things, but we don't seem to get the results that we deserve. And we have 80% of Americans today are either overweight or obese. So 8 out of 10 Americans, it blows my mind to even say it, but that's what the data shows. 8 out of 10 Americans today are either overweight or obese. Now, obese, we're going to generalize 30 pounds or more over their weight that they should be, their ideal weight. So 1 in 5 21-year-olds in America today are eligible physically to go and get into the military. So that means that 4 out of 5 are not physically able to get into the military. So, we've got some real problems, y'all. 80% of Americans overweight or obese. 20% of all 21-year-olds are physically able to pass the military physical fitness test. At our CrossFit gym, we have a couple, I have a guy, Johnny, who is a police cadet trainer, and he just said and he's done it for 30-something years now, so he's been around it a long time. And he just said the amount of the amount of young people who are trying to pass the physical fitness test for the police academy, he said it's embarrassing how many of them can't pass, and they just can't. No matter what they try to do, they can't fit. They're not physically fit enough to even pass, and they have for lack of a better term, they've dumbed it down. They've lowered the standards because they needed to try to get more people into the police force. But they just, even doing that, he said they still, the majority, just can't get through it. So it's bad, obviously, for our military. It can be bad for our police, but more importantly for us, it's bad for our health, and it's bad for our children's health. And Emily, I think about somebody like you with 2 young kids, and how much advantage your kids are going to have over the average American kid. Because I know you've been through my weekend. You've had dramatic results for yourself. Your kids are going to be, leaps and bounds ahead of other children who are eating the kind of things we're going to talk about tonight that we say probably should be limited, and they're eating a lot of the stuff we're going to say, hey, this is probably good nutrition. Now, the reason this is so important is that our bodies replace every cell. Every cell, we have tens of trillions of cells in each of our bodies. And each of those cells is replaced every 7 years. Now, some are replaced sooner than every 7 years, but they're all kind of turned over and made new every 7 years. That includes our bone cells. Those are some of the longer cells that need to turn over. So stomach cells and hair follicle cells and some of those things, they turn over very quickly. Bone cells and some of these other type of cells turn over very slowly. But we make an entire new cell, every cell in our body. So we really make a new body about every 7 years. So I try to encourage people to understand that the choices we make today have a huge impact on what our health will be, not only next week, next month, next year, but 7 years down the road. So when we can understand that nutrition, good nutrients in our body, make a huge difference in the quality and the health of those cells moving forward, and not only that, the quality of our cells, but the way that we feel, the way that we look, the way that we think, the way that we're able to perform, all these things improve when people put good nutrients in the body. That is the way that God designed our body to work. When you give it good stuff, you typically get good results. When we give it bad stuff, we get bad results. And so for those members who've been watching the videos, and I hope you have gone back and watched them all for this month, we talked about some things that we definitely want to avoid. And please, if you have questions, go on. If you're a member and on Zoom, type them in the chat. Magic, Heather, somebody will have to tell me how we get them on Facebook, or if we get them on Facebook. I don't know. So anyway, ask your questions as we go, and I'll get to them. But we need to think about some things that are common in America, commonly consumed in America, that can be very damaging to our health. And I think the one of the broad strokes that I can make here, and one of the things that I can talk about that just is easy for most people to comprehend and understand. It may not be easy to do, but it's easy to understand what I mean. And this was kind of our action point for January for our membership, is eat real foods. So if it's in a box, a bag, a can, a packaged item, we probably want to try to minimize or avoid those things. If it won't go bad, if it won't spoil sitting out of the refrigerator, if it will last forever, like I give the example of the Healthy Choice meal, and I give the example of the Big Mac, and I give the example of an Oreo, and I give, all a Swiss cake roll, a Twinkie, those things, they will literally never go bad. They never go bad because they don't have any living enzymes in them. And when food has living enzymes in it, and it's real food, it will eventually spoil or go bad or turn dark or, rot. It'll rot is what it will do. And that's because the enzymes have a limited lifespan. So really, really simple. I know it sounds simple concept, but is eat more real foods and cut out more junk is what it is, right? The processed foods. And I have a message here, that I should mention about weight. So if people are concerned with their weight, they should absolutely think about eating more real foods. Now, one of the things that I've always taught for over 30 years now in the OptiU program is we don't count calories. We don't weigh, we don't measure, we don't have a point system. Those things fail. And it is proven, by the way, that the average calorie restricted eating plan or diet, that's really a diet, which I don't teach diet, I teach healthy eating. Those calorie restricted plans have an average weight change over a 12-month period of plus 5 pounds. And that's because you can't deny yourself. I mean, yeah, we can go on 1,200 calories or 500 calories or 800 calories or whatever arbitrary number you'd like to pick for a short time, but you're not going to be able to maintain that long term. And it's not going to work long term. When we eat good, real foods, your body will tell you, your hormones, your ghrelin and your leptin in your brain will change. And your body will tell you when you're hungry. It will tell you when you're full. It will tell you when you need to quit eating. And you don't need to measure, weigh, and count. Now I say that if you're trying to go to the, Miss America contest or the Mr. America contest, then you're probably going to need to get like really, really precise. But for most of us, it is not necessary to be able to maintain good, healthy weight with to count and to weigh and to measure. So that's a great point. So thank you for bringing that up, because that's one of the things that we've talked about forever. Food is not really calories. Calorie is kind of a, somebody made up the calorie thing. I shouldn't say made up. I guess they came up with a formula and said, okay, this much food equals a calorie. But what you need to think of food as is information. Think of food as information, not as calories. Think of food as energy. Think of food as the way that our bodies replace those cells every 7 years and what that will look like. Imagine if I'm eating really high quality foods for the next 7 years, what my cells will look like versus if I'm eating the typical American diet where 80% of us are overweight or obese, how that's going to look. What are the cells going to look like on the person over here eating, junk food, fast food, junk food all day versus the person who's eating real quality foods? What are their cells going to look like in 7 years? What are they going to feel like in 7 years? What are they physically going to look like in 7 years? What disease processes might they have or not have? And here's something that we should definitely hit on is the fact that a lot of people like to say, I'm overweight. I hear this a lot, okay? When I'm doing these personal consultations, I did multiple today, so forgive me if my brain's a little fried, but just know that if we have, Heather, can you tell me, is there a way people can send questions on the Facebook Live and somebody see them? I'm not sure that I can, but I don't know how, obviously, but if there is, let me know. So we need to think about how we'll feel, how we'll look, but the studies show that what people tell me all the time is, hey, I'm overweight because my mom was overweight, my grandma was overweight, her grandma was overweight, my dad's overweight, my grandpa was overweight, his grandpa was overweight. So just know that the studies show that 95% of all disease processes, and I'm counting overweight and obesity, clearly as a disease process, that it is not genetic. Okay? It's not genetic. It is the choices that we make. It's what we call epigenetics. It's what we put in and on our bodies. So making sure that we're putting good food in, good water in, good supplements in, getting quality exercise or movement, and getting quality rest and sleep. So those are the 5 pillars of the OptiU program, and they're not really complicated. The problem is it's convoluted as to what people think. And there's a reason that it's that way, is because the food companies, big food, okay, the big major conglomerate companies are paying for the education. They're paying the bills, or a big portion of the bills, for the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association, the American Pediatrics Society, or can't remember the exact term for it, but the pediatricians. They're paying the American Diabetes, if I didn't say it. They're paying for the nutritionists. They're paying for the dietitian training. So you have to understand that you have the big food companies paying for that type of access. So when the new guidelines came out, and they literally said that Lucky Charms was more nutritious than eggs. Okay? It was a better breakfast to feed your kids Lucky Charms than it was to feed them a real egg. So I just want you to know that we're overwhelmed with the amount of people, experts, so-called experts, telling us to do things that don't make sense for our health, okay? And so we've got to understand that when these people are paying to have these things said, like Lucky Charms better for you than an egg, or those kind of things. So just know that what I teach and what I talk about a lot of times is not what happens when you go to the physician or the dietitian or the nutritionist or the American Diabetes site or the American Medical Association or the pediatricians or any of these folks. You know, I want you to think about the fact that when you have children, and I'm sure Emily can she's more current to this certainly than I am, and many of you may be. But the pediatricians tell you that the first food that your child should eat is, if you're not breastfeeding, is a sugary, bad fat formula. Such as, you know, there's lots of them. I mean, there's Similac, I don't know all the brand names anymore, but I mean, it is essentially one of the things that I taught in one of my videos to the members not to eat or to avoid at all costs was omega-6 fats. And that would be things like canola oil, soybean oil, what am I missing? Corn oil, peanut oil, all those seed oils is what we call them, SEED oils, seed oils. Those are very inflammatory. Those are very damaging to our heart and blood vessels. And that is what's in all these baby formulas, is these inflammatory oils with sugar, essentially all different versions of sugar. So we have really got to think of what we're doing. Now, I'm going to tell you that none of us should be eating those seed oils. None of us should be cooking with canola oil. None of us should be cooking with corn oil or soybean oil or peanut oil or any of those fats. We should be using real butter. We should be using coconut oil. Those are the things, I mean, that really simplifies what you cook with. If you're cooking, you cook with oils that aren't damaged and aren't damaged at heat. And that does not include olive oil, okay? But it does include real butter. We like Kerrygold because it's grass-fed butter. It includes, typically we're using extra virgin organic coconut oil. And when I say coconut oil, understand that at room temperature, it's a solid. When you heat it, just like butter though, it does not damage it. The heat does not damage it. The heat does damage olive oil when you cook with it. So we would prefer you use olive oil for things like salad dressings and those kind of things where you don't heat them up. So I would encourage you not to use any of the seed oils, and I would encourage you not to cook with olive oil, but with butter or coconut oil. We prefer butter, just like to taste better, but either works. So we cook almost everything with butter. So we want to get in good quality fats on a daily basis. Your body and my body requires fat. Our brains require fat in order to work. So we need to think, what are good fats? Well, we've talked about some. What you cook your food in is one easy way to get in good quality fats. You can have good quality salad dressings with avocado or olive oil. That's certainly okay. You can do things like avocado is a great fat. So we, typically Beth will make some guacamole. We may even slice an avocado and have it with something, but typically when we're eating avocado, it's going to be more geared toward the guacamole. So those are some easy ways of things that you can put good fat in. The other thing that has good fat in it is grass-fed, grass-finished beef. So grass-fed, grass-finished beef would have more of the good fats in it than a conventionally fed cow or animal, because they're fed those seed oils and worse, and they're given hormones and antibiotics. So we're trying to avoid that. Somebody commented here, said, my doctor told me not to eat eggs because of cholesterol. Is this true? That's a really, really good question. Thanks for bringing it up. I think that, again, it's a misunderstanding in the medical field for that. I believe that eggs are one of the perfect foods, and I believe that they're because they're about 50% fat and 50% protein. And we need fats and proteins every day. We talked a little bit already tonight about why we need good fats for our brain and for just energy and lots of reasons. But good fats, not seed oils, not the things that most people are eating. The vast majority of Americans are eating their fat from these they're called omega-6 seed oils, and they're inflammatory and they are damaging. So I think that eggs are a great choice. We eat a lot of eggs at our house. I actually put a raw egg in my OptiU grass-fed protein shake every day. We call it our superfood shake. I'm not telling anybody that's what they should do, but I'm getting real eggs from a farmer, a local farmer. So the chickens are true free range. They're running around eating bugs and grass and leaves, and they get out in the sun every day when there's sun, and they're not confined to a cage, and they're not getting hormones and antibiotics. So yes, we eat a lot of eggs. So no, I don't. To answer the question, my doctor told me not to eat eggs because of cholesterol. Is this true? I think it is not true. I don't think that cholesterol has damaging effects on the body unless it's oxidized, oxidized or damaged. Maybe that's a better way to put it. It's easier to understand. If your cholesterol becomes damaged, it becomes a problem. But when your cholesterol is not damaged, it's actually an antioxidant. There's plenty of studies that show that if you lower your cholesterol, or the lower your cholesterol is, the more prone you are to infections. The more prone you were to have the latest virus that was there. I probably shouldn't say the name of it because it'd probably get me kicked off. But the latest virus that was out there, the people who had the most trouble had lower cholesterol. And of course, there's a whole group of drugs called the statin drugs to lower cholesterol. It's a whole nother class that we can't get into. But no, to answer the question, I don't think that you should not eat eggs because you're worried about your cholesterol. The brain requires cholesterol to work. The brain requires LDL, or what would be considered, we'll quotation marks here, bad cholesterol, in order to make new brain cells. So no, I think that eggs are great. I don't think you should avoid them. I do, however, believe, again, the quality of the egg matters. And again, I prefer a pastured organic. It doesn't even have to be organic, certified organic, but no hormone, no antibiotic egg from a chicken that lives the way a chicken was designed to live. Source my beef. Okay, the same place that I get my eggs. I get everything from Windy Hill Farms, which is here in North Carolina. God, I can't think of the name of the town now, but it's up above Hickory. And they deliver to our Prescriptions Plus in Kings Mountain once a month. So we just put in custom orders there for that. So good question. Am I scared of salmonella eating the raw egg? No, I am not scared of salmonella eating the raw egg. Now, if it were just the average run-of-the-mill grocery store egg from one of these farms that's the chickens are confined and they're fed all this junk, yes, I would be, I don't know that I would be scared of it, but I would certainly be more cautious. Just like I wasn't scared of the latest virus that was out, I'm not scared of salmonella because I believe that the OptiU plan optimizes my immune system. So I think that my gut is healthy, and I think that it can probably fight off those things unless they just become overwhelming. So great questions. So I think we should get in good fats. I don't think eggs are bad for us. I don't worry about my cholesterol level. I do worry about whether I'm oxidizing my cholesterol or not. And we can talk a lot about antioxidants. That's not what tonight's class is, but the OptiU concept and plan is designed so that we don't oxidize our cholesterol or any of the cells in our body. We try to minimize that as much as humanly possible by doing the right things. So we need to make sure that we get in good fats. We need to make sure that we get in adequate quality protein on a daily basis. Americans are very protein deficient because we're eating so much junk food, fast foods, processed foods, boxed, bagged, and canned foods. Again, they're high in these omega-6 seed oils that create inflammation and oxidation, the things we want to avoid. And they're very typically low in protein, and they're certainly low in any quality protein because they're full of these bad fats and sugars and hidden sugars and artificial sweeteners and all kind of things, right? So they have MSG, monosodium glutamate, in a lot of them. You'll see a lot of things listed as natural flavors. Well, that can be monosodium glutamate, which is literally a poison to our bodies. And it's everywhere in these prepackaged foods. And that's, again, if you're buying real food and if you're eating real food, you won't typically get that unless you add it in. So it just doesn't naturally come in the foods. So we want you to think of eating good quality protein. Now, one of the things that we recommend for everybody coming through the OptiU program or coming for a consultation is that they use our OptiU non-GMO, no hormone, no antibiotic, grass-fed, grass-finished whey protein. Why do we say that? Because it's very easy for the body to absorb it. It's very easy for the body to utilize it. It's very easy for the body to digest it. Even people who are typically lactose intolerant can take our product with no issues, use our product with no issues, because it's a very easily digested protein. So 99% of the protein products, powder products on the market are denatured. That means that it has been heated and the enzymes are dead. The rest are, and the vast majority are full of toxins and hormones and antibiotics and sugars and artificial sweeteners. And of course, we don't have any of that in our product. So one of the things that we talk about is that we want people to get adequate protein. Now, what's adequate protein? Because there's a question here. Well, how much should a middle-aged woman who does not work out get? See, I would tell you, I'm not sure that working out or not working out has a huge difference in how much protein we need, because we all require protein. Every cell in our body requires protein. And one of the things that I talk about a ton when we're talking about protein is it helps your body build, if you're working out, or if you're not, maintain muscle. And muscle, you should think of it this way. Muscle is our bank account for aging. It's our IRA. It's our retirement plan. Because the more muscle we carry, the more efficient our body is at burning carbohydrates, which we're coming to, that we eat, that we consume. The more efficient our body is at doing that. But more muscle means more blood flow. More muscle means more energy. More muscle means less risk of falls, less risk of bone loss, less risk of Alzheimer's, believe it or not, or memory issues. So muscle is critical. And again, when you think about 80% of Americans are overweight or obese, the muscle is going to be low, right? So we recommend that the average American that we're dealing with, is going to need, or every American, I should say, is going to need about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Now, if they're working out, that's probably more a must. If they're not working out, they may be able to get by with a little bit less. So let's say, I just make up a number. Let's say we got a 135-pound middle-aged woman who's not working out. She very well may be able to get along with 110 grams of protein or 120 and doesn't have to directly try to get to 135. And not that, again, we're not counting, weighing, or measuring. It's just generalizations that we want people to understand. We're a protein deficient nation and we need protein, okay? So 2 things that we need are fat and protein. So fat and protein are critical. They're required for our bodies to survive, okay? So obviously we need air, we need to breathe, we need water, and we need fat, and we need protein. Now, before I move on to the next thing, there's another question here. It's another good one. What are your thoughts on dairy? Dairy is a maybe, okay? And when I say that, I mean that because so much dairy today is processed with hormones and antibiotics. And it's from animals that are fed these seed oils and worse. And so it can create a lot of inflammation. It can create a lot of phlegm. It can create a lot, especially in kids, ear infections or sinus infections and just congestion. And if you hear people who are constantly like having to clear their throat all the time, a lot of times they may have a dairy sensitivity. But if it's really high quality dairy, no hormone, no antibiotics, we do some dairy, we do some really high quality cheese. And remember, real foods, real cheese does not come in a plastic slice and says Kraft Singles on it. That's not cheese, right? I mean, there may be some cheese there, but it's mostly not cheese. So I think that the dairy is more, can your body handle it versus can it not? And when people are using our foundational 4 products, our foundational 4 supplements, we typically find that almost anybody can handle the dairy much better with our probiotics and our enzymes, because a lot of people are dairy sensitive or lactose sensitive just because they don't have the enzyme to process it. So if we give the person the enzyme back through our digestive enzymes and give them the good bacteria they need through the probiotic, their body is then able to take care of it. So great question. Now, so we need water, we need air, we need fat, and we need protein. Now here's where people really get confused. And when we're talking about America, you have to understand that we're protein deficient. Don't know that we're fat deficient, but we're eating the wrong fats most of the time. The general average American, maybe not you that are on here, and if you are, we're hoping to help you start to change that process. But the thing that we're filling up on, and the reason that 80% of Americans are overweight or obese, and the reason that 1 out of 5 can qualify for the military that are 21 years old, which is mind-blowing to me. The reason Johnny can't get enough people qualified to go in the police department is because we're carb overloaded, right? Now, there was research done at Duke University, and I'm a Tar Heel, so I don't like giving Duke credit, but I'm going to give Duke credit for this, that says that carbohydrates are not required for any of us to survive and live, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't eat carbohydrates, and that doesn't mean that we ever recommend you don't eat carbohydrates. But we do talk about, just like good quality fats, good quality protein, we do talk about good quality carbohydrates, because good quality carbohydrates can be very beneficial for our bodies versus processed carbohydrates, which are what most people in America are eating. Did you know that 25%, only 25% of American adults say they eat a vegetable of the adults in America who say they eat a vegetable every week, 25% say that vegetable is a French fry. Now, I hope you're on here and you understand that a French fry is not a vegetable. That is a starch. That is a carbohydrate. And it is not a good carbohydrate, because that potato, or if you're at a fast food restaurant and you look at the ingredients of those things, they're really very little potato there and a lot of other things that I don't think we want to put in us. But then they're fried, and guess what? Those seed oils, those omega-6 oils, which are damaged with heat. So it's not a good carbohydrate choice. It is a starch choice, just like corn would be a starch. So what do we mean when we say good carbohydrates? Well, we mean things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus. I'm leaving a lot of squash, zucchini, onions, those salads, big, leafy green salads. Those are really high quality carbohydrates for us, and they help the gut bacteria in our bodies work. Now, some people have trouble digesting those type of carbohydrates, but again, with our OptiU plan, we're typically taking care of those digestive issues with the probiotic and the enzyme. If we can just listen, if we could get everybody in America, and I really believe this, and I believe the data backs this, to use the foundational 4 products that I designed for the OptiU program that I formulated, and just cut out some of these carbohydrate junk foods, some of these high fat, wrong fat junk foods, low protein junk foods, we would literally turn the health of America around. I mean, completely. We're spending $4 trillion a year, and we get these kind of results. How can 80% of Americans be overweight or obese and we're spending $4 trillion? The next 10 nations, I'm going to repeat it, the next biggest 10 spending on healthcare nations don't equal the 10 nations added together, don't equal the 4 trillion we spend. We keep doing, the definition of insanity. Everybody knows the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Look, if we don't change this, the lifespan of kids born today has gone down. Okay, they're projected to live less time than adults, so less years. But even more tragic to me is to think about. I tell everybody, if I add years to my life, that's okay. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to fuss. But what I'd much rather do is add life to my years. And so what's happened in America is people are becoming unable to perform their daily task at earlier and earlier ages. So yeah, maybe they live, but their quality of life is really poor. And they don't have the energy, and they don't have the ability, and they don't feel like going out and doing things. So one of the things that I always talk about is we should absolutely feel 18 every day. Now, those of you who are on here who know me, obviously I'm not 18, but I literally feel like I'm 18 every day. It doesn't just happen, though. I tell everybody, you have to do things in order to feel 18 every day. When I teach my OptiU plan, when you're learning through this membership, these are things that I do on a daily basis that I'm telling you, that I'm recommending you to do. I'm not telling you to do anything, that I'm teaching you to do. I don't tell you anything that I'm not doing. I will give you full disclosure. The things that Beth and I and my family do, that's the reason that I feel like we feel we're 18 every day. I haven't slowed down one bit, okay? I haven't, and I don't plan on it. Rhonda asked, can kids use your multivitamin? Absolutely, Rhonda. You said one a day. It depends on how old they are. We literally have infants, day-old infants, using the vitamins on the mom's nipple that's breastfeeding. The probiotic and the enzyme especially. We don't typically recommend it day one for the multi, but yes, kids of any age can use the multivitamin. Depends on how old they are, how much. You can empty it and put it in anything. It really doesn't have a taste. Neither does the probiotics or the enzyme. So great question. And yes, kids should absolutely be using these things because they're maybe more nutritionally deficient than the adults at this point, right? Because they're eating a lot of times just, worse than the adult. So, yeah, that's great. So Rhonda says, yeah, how many multis per day? So it depends on the age, Rhonda. I would say, 12 and under, one a day is okay. It's not wrong to give them more. Certainly 6 or under, I would just do one a day. 12 and above, I would, at that point, we would start giving them 2 a day, just like the adults, for sure. My kids have always, their entire lives, had a lot of supplements, okay? So, but they haven't been sick. Really and truly, they haven't. They've never been on an antibiotic. They just didn't miss sporting events or anything for being sick that I can remember, certainly. But, they were on a lot of supplements. They drank a protein shake, every day. So, and still do take a lot of supplements today. So, good question. And yes, they should, Rhonda. And by the way, Rhoda, it's good to hear from you. I hope you and your husband are still doing well. Rhoda came through my OptiU weekend and just had really tremendous results. So really glad to see you back on here and would love to have you join our membership program if you'd like. So let's eat good quality fats. Let's eat good quality proteins. Let's eat good quality carbohydrates. This is not food, but let's talk about it. It's what do we drink, right? And we're going to get to more detail on this, but we need to obviously, hopefully we need to cut out or limit or minimize soft drinks, sweetened drinks, juices, energy drinks. A lot of people now drink what they'll call coffee that is full of, syrups. That's probably better that we try to avoid those kind of things. So let's think about more water, okay? And we'll talk about what kind of water we recommend and why. But it's really important that we try to take care of these things, with our food. Let's also change the other thing that's going in is our liquids. Okay, Rhoda says she's doing well. Thanks. Yeah, that's great, Rhoda. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, so now the question is, can you speak about the vitamin D study, why we need to supplement? Okay, so if you're a member, this was asked by a member, you get once a month, we're doing kind of we'll call it a cutting edge or learning of some more research. So this month we did vitamin D and why vitamin D was so important. Reducing cancers, reducing heart disease, bone disease, brain disease. I mean, vitamin D literally is a pro-hormone that affects over 1,000 genes, and I don't mean genes we wear, right? But genes, Genes, in our body. So vitamin D has a unique ability to turn good genes on and bad genes off, along with some other things we talk about. But vitamin D is critical for our immune system. Vitamin D it's critical for health. If you want to have optimal health, which is what OptiU is all about, right? An optimal you. You have to have optimal vitamin D levels and not normal vitamin D levels. So the question is, why do we need to supplement? And that is because there's no way in the fortified foods, they'll say it's fortified with vitamin D, that you're ever going to get enough vitamin D to get you to optimal levels. Vitamin D deficiency was one of the leading reasons, along with being overweight or obese, that people died from the most recent viral outbreak. So vitamin D plays critical roles, and there's no way. Fortified foods are synthetic. Vitamins are added in. So when you see, your favorite cereal, like we talked about how healthy Lucky Charms are according to the powers that be, says it is fortified with vitamins A, C, E, D, whatever, the box would say. I'm not reading that box verbatim, but those are synthetic vitamins. Those are not the forms that I would ever formulate in any of my OptiU or Prescriptions Plus products. Now, you can get some vitamin D from sunshine, but depending on where you are and the angle of the sun, like I live here in North Carolina, we're only able to get vitamin D from the sun about 5 or 6 months out of the year. But the research shows that Southern Floridians and Southern Californians have the same vitamin D levels as the rest of the country. Because when you're in the sun and you have on clothes, it doesn't really work. Like a shirt. Like if you're in a bathing suit, you can certainly get some. If you have on any sunscreen, you basically have blocked it all. So what the sun really does, what the newest research shows, is that the sun activates the vitamin D. That hopefully we're taking a quality vitamin D like the Prescriptions Plus vitamin D with Super K. And there's lots of reasons why we have the right kind of vitamin K in it. But again, that's a different class at a different time. I guess the question is, why do we need to supplement? And we need to supplement because it's one of the most important. We call it a vitamin, and even my product says vitamin D. It's really a pro-hormone. It's really a hormone. So we really, really, really need to optimize vitamin D levels. It reduces in fights lots. I believe it's 20. I don't want to give you a number, but it's a lot of different kinds of cancers. Again, great for the heart health, great for bone health, great for brain health, great for the immune system. So we have to have adequate vitamin D in order to have optimal health. I don't think it's voluntary. And I will tell you that in the OptiU RX blood panel that I created, over the years, now 30 years, I have seen, I don't know how many thousands, or if not tens of thousands of people whose vitamin D was below 20 nanograms per milliliter. Okay? Now that's atrocious. That's like rickets kind of levels, like if we don't get above that. It is not unusual, y'all. Not at all. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, are taking vitamin D, so-called vitamin D from, one of these chain stores, and their vitamin D is still 16, 18, or 20, and that's because the research shows 80% of supplements on the market don't contain any of the active ingredients. And when you look at those kind of products, I can pick it out in a half a second because they have toxins in them. They'll have the seed oils in them, they'll have sugar in them, and they don't even have the vitamin D. All right, so Dr. Vickers says, which of your 4 main supplements would you recommend the most and why? That's a really good question. And I got to tell you, Dr. Vickers, I recommend all 4. That's why they're the 4 foundations. But if you had to put me I tell everybody, if I was taking the cruise with Gilligan and I was going to be stranded on Gilligan's Island the rest of my life, and I could only take one supplement, I'm going to take my 5 organic chelated salt magnesium. And I'll tell you why. It has over 350 positive functions in the body. It directly affects over 600 enzymatic reactions in our bodies. It is 80% of Americans are magnesium deficient. It is probably the supplement that people feel the quickest. They know the difference. It is tremendous for sleep and quality of sleep, deep sleep. We help people that are able to come off their Ambiens, their Trazodones, it's a tremendous muscle relaxer, so they can oftentimes reduce their muscle relaxers or come off their muscle relaxers. It is tremendous support against migraines and headaches, menstrual issues for ladies, mental issues. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it just has so many benefits for the person that uses it that if I was pinned down to only one, it would be the OptiU 5 organic chelated salt magnesium, because it's really magic, and I don't literally mean magic, but it's unique. Maybe that's the way I should put this, in the way that it helps you at bedtime relax and go to sleep and sleep deep, so that your body has enough energy to do the cleanup that is necessary. But then you wake up and the next morning you have more energy, obviously because you slept better, but because magnesium is the #1 rate limiting factor in our body's ability to make cellular energy. So we don't have a ton of magnesium in the body, and 80% of Americans are deficient, full-blown deficient. We're not going to feel good. We're not going to produce energy good. We're going to be more prone to diabetes. We're going to be more prone to headaches. We're going to be more prone to bone loss. Magnesium is tremendous for the bones. If we don't have adequate magnesium, it takes double the amount of vitamin D, which we were just discussing how important vitamin D was. It takes double the amount of vitamin D to get our levels to the same spot, because we have low magnesium, because they work in unison, they work together. So that is definitely, of all the supplements that I formulate, I always try to get people to start with the 4. But hey, if they say, hey, I'm going to do one, I'm always going to recommend the magnesium. And I will tell you, Dr. Vickers, that is our biggest seller. So it's a great question and a great product. Okay, Mark says, no, Mark, no problem jumping in late. Really want to jump on inflammation. We're taking your vitamins now, but want to add the right ones to help. I'll be listening. Okay, great question, Mark. So, yeah, I think, Mark, that you and your wife are using the Foundational 4 to the best of my memory, and you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're not, that's where we start. The multi, the magnesium we just discussed, the probiotics, and the enzymes. Then we typically go and start talking about the vitamin D with Super K. And then specifically for, not just for inflammation, but one of the big things for inflammation is a product that I formulate called Fish Focus. Fish Focus. That is an omega-3. So I talked a lot earlier, and you may not have been on, about omega-6 fats, which create a lot of inflammation, which are the seed oils, the corn oils, the canola oils, the soybean oils. Those create a ton of inflammatory processes in the body and the inflammation you're discussing. And omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. Now, here's the real catch to this and why I say this, Mark. For optimal health, wellness, and fitness, we would like our omega-6 inflammatory fats to our anti-inflammatory fats, omega-3 ratio, to be between 1 to 1, so 1 omega-6 to 1 omega-3, to 2 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. So 1 to 1 to no more than 2 to 1. The average American is between 30 and 50 to 1. So in other words, the average American, when tested, and we can test these levels, have 30 to 50 times more of the inflammatory omega-6s than they do the omega-3s. So we're 30 to 50 times more than what we would want to control inflammation. So we have to, I think, start by taking away the bad fats that create this inflammation and putting in more of the good fats that can help tone it down. The question says, hey, your fish oil does not give me fish burps. Why is that? Well, it's very simple, and it's a great question, and thank you for pointing it out. And I'm going to give you another suggestion on inflammatory supplements too. But fish oil, the majority, over 90% of fish oil on the market is rancid. What do I mean when I say rancid? I mean it's already gone bad. It's already oxidized. It already tastes and smells terrible, right? Our fish oil is processed on the boat, not weeks later. Some of these fish oils, they catch the fish and they process it months, weeks later. So it's damaged. It's already damaged. It's harmful. It's very inflammatory. So we don't do that, and that's why you don't burp it up, and that's why it doesn't smell bad. The biggest challenge with the fish oil is to get an adequate dose. It's a pretty good gel cap, right? It's a pretty good size, but other than that, it's just a different quality. Every supplement we have though is a different quality. So those recommendations, Mark, and then we have a product. Well, we have two choices for you to go a step further. One is called Inflozyme, Inflozyme, and one is called Inflamma-Ease. They're essentially the same product. One is a powder and one is a capsule. But they combine a myriad of ingredients that are proven to help reduce inflammation. And they also have lots of anti-cancer benefits, lots of anti-heart attack benefits, and that is because they reduce inflammation. So inflammation is a key component of all the diseases we see, the most common diseases we see today, like heart disease and cancers and strokes and blood clots and arthritis, obviously, and back pains and shoulder pains and and those kind of things. Those are inflammatory conditions. So as we continue to go through these monthly videos with the members, they're going to learn a ton about inflammation as we go, Mark. So thank you for asking that question. But those are the top things we would do to help reduce inflammation. The foundational 4, the vitamin D with Super K, and then specifically the Inflazyme, Inflamma Ease, and Fish Focus. And we wouldn't do Inflazyme and Inflamma Ease. We would do either or, and we would do the Fish Focus. By the way, I think this is important to point out. The Fish Focus, the omega-3s that we have in there, have been shown to reduce sudden death from a heart attack by 64%. Now that's a pretty big deal considering 1 out of 4 Americans die of heart disease. It doesn't mean you don't necessarily have the heart attack, but it means you don't die from the heart attack, because about 50% of people, the first sign of a heart attack is death, which is unfortunate, right? They probably have the blockage in what's called the widowmaker artery that leads to the heart. So unfortunately, that's a tragic situation. But when we have quality omega-3 fish oil in our system, we've reduced inflammation, and we have allowed the blood to flow more efficiently. So it helps naturally thin the blood. The Fish Focus does. So great questions. All right, Rhoda says, off topic, sorry. No, you don't have to. Off topic's cool, Rhoda. Does your wife or family bake occasionally? I use high quality ingredients, but wanted to hear what your family does. Okay. Yes, we do bake some, Rhoda, for sure. But again, we're definitely using high quality ingredients. We make occasionally brownies or muffins or those kind of things, but we're typically using not white flour. We're using an almond flour, a coconut flour, and we're using good fats. We're not using any seed oils for sure. So that's a really good question. So we do bake some, certainly. If you mean, when you say bake, I think you're talking more like what I would think of baking as cookies, cakes, those kind of things, muffins. But they're not what you would find at Starbucks, right? They don't use those. We don't use those type of ingredients, but they taste really good. Now, we don't do a lot of it, but we certainly do some of it. But yes, I don't think baking with good quality ingredients is a problem at all. Where do I find information on the membership? I hadn't heard about it. Well, Rhoda, I'm shocked you hadn't heard about it, but you should have got a text about it, but I apologize that you didn't. Heather sent you the link for it there. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, so the membership or the subscription is a way, Rhoda, that we are staying in touch with people. Because one of the things, and you've been through the weekend, so you know, one of the things people kept saying is, hey, we want to be able to stay in touch with you. And with all the things I have going on and with all the consultations and things, it's hard. So what we did, and Heather is a big part of this, and I'm going to introduce her, maybe not tonight because we're over, but sometime soon. So y'all will know her. She's a ton of information. She's a pharmacist also, and just really has a very good grasp of this wellness that we're doing in the OptiU program, and it's helped me create a lot of this stuff that you see. But anyway, we designed this membership, Heather and I did, to help stay in touch on a weekly basis, where we put out a weekly video on whatever topic. One of them will be something about some research or cutting edge kind of stuff, we call it. And then we'll have a live question and answer once a month also. And there's lots of discounts that you can get from this. There's lots of giveaways. There's, there's lots of stuff like that. Discounts on blood work, discounts on consultations, discounts on the weekend, discounts on different things, okay? Even meal plans. So that being said, that reminds me something I almost forgot. And you can still throw questions up if you have any. But I was supposed to make sure and choose somebody to give the their choice of the 4 foundational supplements that they want, and that would be Susan. Now that's only for people who are on the Zoom, because that's for members. But Susan can just tell us which of the 4 she would like. She asked some really good questions, and we will send it to you, Susan. And thank you for being on, Susan, because I know you've done really well with the program also. So anything else before we go? We're a little bit over an hour. I apologize, but want to make sure we're not leaving any question unanswered. Love to have all of you join our membership if you'd like. But if not, we certainly hope that tonight was good and you learned something from it tonight. It's great to hear from some of you, Rhoda, Emily, Mark, Dr. Vickers. I mean, all of you. Thank you. Everybody that's there. I just remembered seeing some of you join in, and that is really nice to hear from you again. So I'm going to sign off tonight. Thank you all for being here, and let me know if there's anything we can do for you. You can find me at billyw360.com. You can go to optiyourx.com, and Heather sent the link for the membership. Thanks a lot, y'all. Goodbye.